This is America's energy coast, a string of proud states with a rich and unique history, magnificent natural beauty, and abundant energy resources that keep our economy strong. In fact, Gulf Rim neighbors are the 6th largest economic engine in the world. They're also home to one of the most important estuaries on Earth, where the mighty Mississippi River meets the Gulf of Mexico. Our people are sunbathers, roughnecks, commercial and sports fishermen. We're nature lovers, retirees, we're salt of the earth. We're international shippers and eco-cultural enthusiasts. And together, we fuel this nation.
Our resources make America's energy coast key to the nation, but it is at risk. From Mobile Bay to Gulfport, and from New Orleans to Houston, this region fuels our nation. We've lived through the destruction caused by hurricanes, and man-made projects like the leveeing of the Mississippi River have had unintended consequences. Our coastlines are in peril. Outdated policies add to the problem and hinder our ability to cooperate. America's energy coast is vulnerable, and so is the nation. In this time of rising gas prices and national security threats, it's more important than ever to invest in this coast. Energy policy must deliver a sustainable future. The America's Wetland Foundation created a series of PSAs that are telling the story.
The majesty of nature, the power of energy. This Gulf Coast is world-renowned. It also fuels our nation, keeping us warm in winter, cool in summer, and moving all year long. But America's energy coast is threatened. With each new storm, we lose valuable land and the ability to keep our energy supplies safe. Relying on foreign oil is too risky. Tell Washington to shore up America's energy coast. It fuels the nation.
America's energy coast. Each producing state pays a price for maintaining infrastructure and services, restoring our coastal environments, and supporting the communities that are the foundation for stable domestic energy production. The value of protecting and sustaining America's energy coast is undeniable. Quite simply, it's a sound business decision. Hurricane Katrina taught us the effect of energy disruption. Skyrocketing gas prices, stock market trembles, billions of dollars in recovery costs. And in terms of human toll, thousands of lives lost, a major American city ravaged, and a coast and its communities destroyed. We have the science and engineering needed to limit destruction and save taxpayers huge cost by maintaining these vast resources naturally. All that remains is a dedicated revenue stream to reinvest in this valued asset, a national commitment to save this coast that fuels the nation.
Today, leaders from Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama are forming a groundbreaking accord for a new sustainability. This initiative provides a forum for balanced dialogue on the nation's energy and ecological future. It brings together industry and academic leaders, government officials, and stakeholder organizations. This historic agreement focuses on issues of climate, energy, and the coast. It supports finding new ways for energy production to coexist with our natural environment.
This is America's energy coast, where the mighty Mississippi meets the Gulf of Mexico, where the American eagle, once threatened, lives and thrives in coastal Louisiana. We saved the symbol of our nation because losing this proud bird was unthinkable. Now, the American people understand how vital this rich, productive region is to their daily lives. They realize our obligation to leave our children a world that is secure. We're at a critical point in saving this coast, and losing it would also be unthinkable. Like the eagle, America's energy coast can thrive again, safe and protected for generations to come. But we must act today. We must shore up America's energy coast. It fuels this nation.
Well, this is the second of a number of gatherings in communities across the Gulf South to talk about building resilient communities as we assess the plight of our coastline. And this is an initiative of the America's Wetland Foundation, and it's a way of letting people have a say in what their future is going to look like.
What kind of response have you had so far?
We've had a very positive response. The first of these meetings was in Lake Charles and covered that area in southwest Louisiana. Second meeting, of course, here in Plaquemines Parish, and will extend across the Gulf Coast to Mobile and Houston and all the states that are affected. And the response has been very positive. The initiative is a good one. It's designed to let people talk about their future, shape their community's future in the face of what we know is the inevitable loss of land if we don't get real busy real quickly.
What does the research show in terms of that loss of land?
Well, it's profound and it's dramatic. We see the huge land loss that certainly has affected the Louisiana coast over the years, losing the equivalent of a football field of land every 38 minutes or so, and that number has varied over the years, but it's profound, and we know that it's significant. We know that it's continuing. We see it on maps, and you see it very starkly when you look at comparisons where land used to exist just 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, and you see the projections of the land loss going forward for the next 50 or 100 years, and it makes you understand very quickly how significant and dramatic and profound this is.
What needs to happen both from the federal government standpoint and from the state and the local standpoint?
Well, at first blush, there's got to be a significant commitment by the federal government to save America's wetland. This is certainly vital to the rest of America, and it's important to people in the Midwest and the North, just as it is to the people down here who are dramatically affected on the coast itself. The state has made commitments monetarily going forward as funds come in to trust funds, for example, and the federal government needs to do the same thing. There needs to be a very aggressive, there need to be aggressive steps taken to start figuring out ways to redeposit sediment to rebuild the land loss as has occurred, to deal with areas offshore, to provide protections to prevent further erosions in hurricane events and just with the normal surge of the Gulf of Mexico.
We all know we are facing in the future, if not today, significant challenges, and we cannot save everything and do everything. And the truth of it is these communities need to begin to focus on what their real opportunities are and challenges, because we want, I think the state would like, not we, them to participate in determining how they will be able to structure themselves in the future to achieve their resiliency, to be able to maintain as much as they can their character, their commerce, and their reason for being. I mean, all of these are very unique locations, and all of them need to be preserved as much as we can.
Less than a stone's throw from here, we have the river raging, and it is pumping millions of tons of sediment out into the Gulf. Right on the other side of these levees is the place that is dying the most in Louisiana, the southeast Louisiana wetlands. And it is such an irony that we are in this position where we are, as a nation, throwing away this rich sediment and nutrients when we need it right here on the other side of the levee. We've been saying for years that we need multiple lines of defense to restore the coast. And one of the big factors is the Mississippi River. Without the flood protection and without the navigation protection, you would have this every several years, like we're having now, water overflow that would build land. Now, because of many obvious reasons, we built levees, but in the process, we did not engineer a way to keep the wetlands solvent. And so we have the worst of two situations today. We have a flooding system that is going to go where it wants to go eventually, and we have the land that's been dying for almost 100 years since the last big flood. We want to see the local folks have a voice. I think too many people at the federal level have studied and assumed what they're going to do without asking people locally. There are 3 and 4, 5 generations of people that live in Plaquemines and St. Bernard Parish that really do know the way the land operates and manipulates itself. And so this meeting is to listen to these folks and try to get everybody on the same page. It's growing late to get everybody on the same page. This meeting is designed to do just that.
These forums provide an opportunity for people in the affected areas to help drive decisions. The foundation is not going to ultimately make specific decisions, but it's providing the forums for people to be able to participate, for voices to be heard, for science to be involved in the process, and for, as Craig said, individuals who are directly impacted to have input and to think about what their future should look like and what it needs to look like.
We have an ecosystem that both here between Bayou Lafourche and the Mississippi River and Bayou Lafourche and the Atchafalaya, we have got an ecosystem that stretches deep into South Louisiana. It will continue to erode and to deteriorate. And that is what we don't want to have happen, because the economic ramifications of that and the cultural ramifications and human ramifications are far more than we really want to be able to deal with.
We've got to make sure we get the funding from BP designated to the Gulf Coast, and we've got to change the permitting process. And then we've got to be smart. You know, Plaquemines Parish has a package ready to go to bid for a dredge for 3 years. Going out to mob and demob and over-engineering and over-studying has cost us more money than actually building the coastline. We need to put that money where we get the most bang for our buck, and that's in the sediment out there, and build those ridges to protect our coast.
Are you encouraged by the turnout you've seen here today?
Absolutely. This group has been phenomenal. King Millen and the whole team that has taken this across the Gulf Coast. You know, we started here in Plaquemines Parish a few months ago with the kickoff, and going across the coast, including the other states, because we have a lot of differences in saving the coast, but at the end of the day, it's important to all the states around the whole Gulf Coast. So including them was a great idea, and this group has done a phenomenal job at bringing those states together for common ground that we can fight together. And the most important thing is getting that money, 80% of it designated to the Gulf Coast.
We need to keep in mind that's how we get that river connected back to these wetlands, and we need to do it fast. We don't have the time to wait for the traditional federal process, which takes 20 and 30 years. We need an emergency general waiver of the traditional time frame to get this place fixed. As long as we do not repair the wetlands, we will continue to have a threat. And now we've had 3. We've had a man-made oil spill, we've had Katrina and Rita, and we're going to have another storm season right upon us. And now we have the river coming from the opposite direction. It's obvious as to what needs to be done to save so many assets important to the country.
The Mississippi River and flood, I think it's a great time to remember just how dependent we are on a sustainable environment. And the river built this system, and we have to learn to manage the dynamics of this system if we plan to be here in the future. That it's not enough to fight a flood or to build a wall against a hurricane. We have to actually build a future. And that's, I think, what these meetings today and elsewhere around the state are about. It's not merely what do we want to see happen next year, but what are we willing and able to do to create a future that's based upon real circumstances, not just hopes and dreams. And I think that that's a challenge. But the road that got us to where we are today is not the road that takes us where we're going to need to go.
I hope that they feel like they've had a say in what their destiny is going to be down in the future. And that's what it's designed to do, to make people think about the inevitable consequences of coastal erosions and what steps we can take to encourage solutions to these problems, and to have communities, which I know this community does, take pride in its cultural significance, and that's really the impetus behind all this, for communities to recognize that their culture is at risk and what we can do to preserve those cultures and preserve these lands, and recognize that there's going to be an inevitable loss of land, and what is it that we can do to try and sustain the economy and the culture and the very existence of these communities that are threatened.
If people have questions or would like more information, what should they do?
Well, they should contact the America's Wetland Foundation, which is really the impetus behind all this.